everybody. Welcome back to Doormat Mom No More podcast. I'm Doormat Mom. And today we have a very interesting conversation and a very interesting guest. He's the executive director of Truth and Liberty Foundation and the host of Truth and Liberty Show. His name is Richard Harris. And the reason why I'm having him on the show is because he put out a press release, or his organization put out a press release that really caught my attention. And it caught my attention because the percentage of young adults that seem to think our nation was better off after the assassination of the legendary Charlie Kirk was very familiar to me. And probably very familiar to my audience because it mimics that of the number of families in the United States that are suffering with family estrangement, specifically parent-child estrangement. And what Richard Harris noted in that press release is how our left-leaning contingent in this country has eliminated God and has eliminated truth and has infiltrated our media to the point where right and wrong no longer seem to exist. And assassination, no matter who it is wrong. And yet here we have this very large contingent that feels that it was actually right. And so I'm going to share with you a photo of the man himself. This is Richard Harris. He's going to tell you a little about him and his organization. And this actually is the press release that I saw. And it really begged for me to invite him on the show. So here we go. I'm going to bring him on stage and he can tell you a little bit about himself. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hi, Laura. Doing well today. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Sure.
And for sharing that press release. When it crossed my desk, I was really struck by what you had uncovered and the correlation between what I know to be true in this nation with regards to family estrangement. And I do absolutely see a correlation between our two leanings. So tell us a little bit about your background and your organization and a little bit about your concerns with regards to this number.
Sure. So I am the executive director of Truth and Liberty. We have two parts to our organization. One is Truth and Liberty Coalition. The other one is Truth and Liberty Foundation. But together we are an arm, one of many, of Andrew Wommack Ministries based in Colorado. Andrew has been in continuous Bible ministry for over 50 years now. And what we do is we seek to educate, unify, and mobilize believers in Jesus Christ to stand for truth in the public square. So to stand up for biblical values and principles as they apply to issues of everyday life and public policy and everything else. But myself, so I am an attorney by trade, used to be. Well, I still am, but I practiced law actively for over 20 years before the Lord called us to do something a little bit different. And we packed up our family and in the two U-Hauls, big ones, and moved from Oklahoma to Colorado to go through Bible college. And so I did that in my late 40s and have been, actively pursuing God's calling since then. But what the Lord did is he led us into the realm of government. I had a background in that already, a political science major in college, always fascinated with this field. And also served in different political roles here and there. And then when we got out of Bible college, the first thing we did was founded a school of government at the Bible college here with Andrew's ministry, Charis Bible College, headquartered in Woodland Park. We founded the Practical Government School, inspired by David Barton and his teachings. and we're training students in how to serve in the realm of government there. And then in 2019, we founded Truth and Liberty. Andrew did, and asked me to be the director of it. And so that's what we're doing. And we hold events, we mobilize voters, we educate with resources and all kinds of things like that. And have a show myself twice a week that can be caught on our website at truthandliberty.net or on our social media channels. So we're busy as we can be, trying to get the church to understand that God's calling to stand up and be a salt and light in the culture.
That's an interesting mission, because it seems like churches right now are really not stepping up as much as they should, and definitely not. They don't seem to be able to reach our youth, which is why Charlie Kirk was so important, because he was. Yeah. And they're not reaching our youth. And many would say that they're really falling down on the job. They're preaching to the choir in many cases. And I think that the importance of having them cross over into politics and lead that charge as well is significant, more so than ever before. So, when, with regards to this situation with our young voters, the 26% that believe that we're better off after this assassination, and a significant number who also believe that if the same thing happened to Trump or Elon Musk, that would be absolutely fine too. What do you say to that? How do you surmise this group came to be in the way they are thinking?
Well, it's in one sense it's quite simple. In another sense, it's complicated. But the simple answer is that we have been indoctrinating the youth of our nation, the children of our nation, for 50 to 60 years in the principles of secular humanism and Marxism. And it's a godless ideology. Secular humanism says that there is no God, and therefore we are God, and we get to determine our own destiny. That we're all a result of natural processes, and so the natural realm, or naturalism, the natural world is all there is, and we can find everything we need in it. And since we're a part of it, then we're essentially worshiping ourselves. And it leads to a nihilism and a virtueless, literally, a mindset where my feelings, my opinions are really all that matters. Because if there's no God, and keep in mind, Marxism, is predicated on that principle, right? It is by definition atheistic and hostile to religion, especially Christianity. Because it can work with other religions, it doesn't work with Christianity. Right. But since there is no God, then there is no arbiter of truth. And in fact, there is no truth at all, because all truth is relative. I get to decide what is true, right? And you get to decide what is true for yourself. But I have my truth and you have your truth. Remember, a few years back, conservatives were becoming alarmed about the idea of moral relativism, and it has now progressed to flat out, nihilism, and the idea that, well, I have my truth and you have your truth, and you have to respect my truth, and that sort of thing. Well, the problem is that if I'm the one that gets to decide what is true, then what is right for me must be right. And if you oppose it, then you're evil, and I get to do with you whatever is necessary to get rid of you and to stop your opinions, stop your lying, stop your contradiction of my truth. This is where we are. It's the ultimate in self-centeredness, because we are all putting ourselves on the throne. That's what we've been teaching our kids now for 60 years. And so why are we surprised that we have this generation of people that, we call them snowflakes and everything else, but they think that their parents are worthless because their parents are trying to instill universal normative values to teach them right and wrong and to stand up for values and principles, well, that's contradicting what they want. And since what they want is the definition of truth, then parents must be evil. If they're evil, then I'm entitled to reject them and cut them off. There's no such thing as honoring parents. I only honor people that agree with me because I get to decide what is true. You see how if I decide what is true, it leads to all this selfishness virtue signaling and this sort of thing. So that's what we're seeing. Charlie Kirk was a danger because he was upholding absolute truth, biblical truth, standards of morality. Well, we can't have that. That's a threat to the fundamental premise that everything is based on of secular humanism. So, in their mindset, it's okay to eliminate him because he's a threat to their fundamental way of thinking. So, that's how we got here.
Yeah, that's exactly how we got here. And it is so very true, and it's devastating families. It's devastating parents.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where, parents who thought they would have whole families and live out their lives with their children by their side and, are now finding themselves alone on Christmas Day. 5 kids alone on Christmas Day. It is devastating. And these kids, they get a fan club for doing it, and then they have their new gods, many bad therapists who are standing in for God, telling them what to do. And I'm not to say that there are some really incredible therapists out there, but a lot of them are unfortunately left-leaning. And they ultimately are not helping the situation, but actually exasperating it to the point where these kids are really out of sorts in their own lives. And they, whether or not they realize it, will be perpetuating this for, with each one that it's happening to now, 7 generations down the line. So you're not just seeing a today problem, you're seeing a tomorrow problem. And that's really something that it speaks volumes to where we're headed. And I think that, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think the only way you really come to know God is in the quiet. It's in the recesses of your heart and in your soul and in the quiet. And when a child or young adult does not have quiet, when they're constantly on these devices, when they're constantly moving in their head, when they're constantly listening to everybody, there's no silence in their lives. How will they ever get to know themselves? And how will they ever even meet God if they don't have quiet in their lives? And yet quiet is disseminated by everything, their entire world. What do you think?
Well, I think you're hitting on something pretty important. The digital revolution, social media, and everything else has really had some far-reaching, damaging effects on our culture and society. The screen time, it's documented with many studies now. Excessive screen time actually damages neurological development in children, and it does need to be controlled. This constant state of stimulation, where they can become literally addicted to it, and because of the chemicals that are released or not released in the brain. And so it is definitely dangerous. As for knowing the Lord, you're right. Knowing God comes from the Word of God, first of all. If you're not hearing or receiving or reading the Word of God, then it's impossible to have faith in Him. And then this kind of you can hear the Word of God on social media. It's out there, but the average student or the average young person, of course, TikTok and other things like that, it's all engineered to determine what the viewer wants and to give them what they want, right? And so, it's catering to selfish, carnal, hedonistic desires, pride, and all kinds of other things. And that's just the beginning of the story. There's also all of the harm that comes from them constantly comparing themselves one to another, images that are unrealistic, standards that are unrealistic. And of course, there's very little voice of reason or of accountability or of universal truth in the whole process. So it's it's a very bad thing, and that's why kids need parents, and that's why they need to be introduced to God and faith at a young age. So yeah, I'm not saying social media is all bad, but it definitely has to be moderated and controlled, especially for young people. They just do not have the development, the mental maturity, emotional maturity to do that for themselves. It takes parental involvement.
They don't. They don't. And now, those devices are being used in the schools, even to, they're carrying them around in schools or using them for their schoolwork. They become like attached, to them without actually being attached to them. And it's just they don't get that break. They're being encouraged to use it.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Not all social media is bad, but when I see some of the comments, like this kind of stuff, this is assassination. Unfortunately, when I see some of the comments that I see on TikTok, that are so vicious and so cruel, and so it's stunning. I mean, it's stunning to see what will come out of people's mouths when they're behind a keyboard. It's just like such
Mm.
an evil. I don't know if it's just because they're being egged on, but even so, that's where morals come in. That's where character comes in. That and that doesn't seem to be, taking hold in so many of these cases.
Yeah.
So it's a very scary time for our future with regards to these kids, and they're miserable. So many of them are actually miserable,
Right.
and that's coming out. That's
Yep.
coming out. They're telling us they're miserable, and we're just saying, "Oh, look, they're it's entertainment or it's a." No, it's not just these kids are suffering too in many cases. And they're not being helped.
Right. Well, they're not, because it's a um, it's ironic, isn't it, that it's called social media, and it
Yeah,
makes people unsocial or antisocial. It's a false form of socialization. It's not full real human interaction. There might be some interaction with messaging and things like that, but in essence, you're watching on a screen other human beings live a pretend life, because most of the stuff we see is on social media and otherwise is highly curated and edited for the
right,
purpose of entertainment. It's not
right,
real life. And so, kids who are consuming that at 5, 6, 7 hours a day, this is forming and fashioning their worldview. It's fashioning their expectations for others and for themselves. And many of them are looking at themselves in their own lives and realizing they're not measuring up to these fake expectations, whether it be their body image or their, popularity or their accomplishments or whatever the case may be. And they don't see a way to do that. And it's part of the whole complex thing of why our teen, we have record levels of teen suicide.
yeah,
We have mass shooting going on in our country. Why is this? It's also, it's social media is not, this is not the root cause. It is just a contributing factor. The root cause, I believe, is our cultural rejection of God. We have a fatherhood crisis in America today, where 1 in 4 children are born without a father in the home. And the percentage that actually grow up without their biological father is 40%.
yeah,
Um, if you look at all the mass shooters, the vast majority of them do not have fathers in their life or in their home.
right,
And we want to say it's guns, we want to say it's politics, we want to say it's all these things. No, what it is these children, these young people have broken, fractured identities. They don't know who they are. They don't know what their purpose is in life. They're wounded and hurting and afraid and angry.
right.
And so yeah, it all goes back to that. We're made by God for Him and for His purposes, and until we come receive that revelation in our life, it's very difficult for us to walk in wholeness. Or we can put on airs and pretend, but that doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't. And I agree. I mean, I look at it as, God made, man and woman, father and mother for a
Hmm.
reason. We both do very different things, you know, and when one has to, I mean, my situation, I was widowed very young, so I had to be both. But I don't recommend it. I don't recommend having to do that. If you can have a father and mother in a home, and have a cohesive household where the kids are looking towards both for different things, um, you know, an operational working home is the best environment. With loving parents is the best environment because
Right.
each brings something to the table. And if you can, you know, if that's underwritten by God, then it's even better because you have the foundational principles of raising a great family,
Yeah.
and having, you know, the both father and mother watching over the children in their own ways. And it's that's just the simplest thing is the devil, you know, wants the father out of the home. Why wouldn't the devil want the father out of why would the devil want the mother out of the home, honestly? Or both. Hence, we have all this, you know, child care, daycare, kids going to school for 12 hours a day, being, you know, taught things that maybe wouldn't be happening in the home, maybe would, but probably maybe not. So, you know, you have all that going on. So you really rid the child of the foundational elements. And, you know,
Hmm.
I know that many of my followers, many of my fans will having, you know, will kill me if I don't ask the question. Do you
Okay.
think that this is do you think the estrangement situation that's happening, which is just blowing up? I mean, people are saying it's 26, 27%. I think it's higher. I just
Mm.
get based on what I see, I think it's higher. And I think it's also higher in other countries as well, because I'm getting parents from all over. Um, do you think there's a spiritual war going on? Do you think it's a good versus evil?
Oh,
Um,
well, yeah, there's no question about that. There's no question about it. The spiritual element is, you know, you mentioned the devil. Well, the devil is after God's design. He's trying to destroy God's plans and God's design. And so, if you look at the fundamental issues of our day, you can find all of the answers and direction for those issues in the first three chapters of the Bible. When God told us how he made us and what we're supposed to do, it's all right there. And that's where the enemy is attacking. And whether it's abortion or sexual perversion or transgenderism or the rejection of parents and parental authority, it's all right there. And, you know, so yeah, he's after that. Of course, the family the family is where the deepest connections of our lives are made. It's where the most important connections are made. It's where identity is formed. A child's identity is formed before they're even really self-aware to know that they even have an identity. The brokenness that we see today, it generally can be traced back to experiences within the first 10 years of life. And so a nurturing whole family is a critical aspect of human flourishing. Data is out now that shows that children need both biological parents in the home, and that all sorts of performance indicia, from just general happiness on the one hand, depression on the other, to how well they do in school, to their socioeconomic status later in life, can all be traced to this important thing, which is the family and the father and mother in the home. So, you know, and so that's why I talk about the Lord in this, is because it's about God's design for us. And it's funny, we got so smart, didn't we? We got so wise and so enamored with our own intellect and our own ability that we cast out all the standards of generations of tradition in Western Christian civilization in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2010s. And now finally, where some people are starting to look and go, hey, wait a second. The data says this is the best way, not having sex till marriage, getting married young and having lots of children, having a stable home, all these kinds of things, that our society's been preaching for decades now, is old-fashioned white supremacist, whatever stupid label they want to put on it, the fact of the matter is it's truth, and it's how we were made and how we were designed. And the sooner we get back to the owner's manual for ourselves, the
Right.
better off we're going to be.
Well, it's interesting because this story has played out over time throughout the Bible. I mean, how many times, if they read the Bible, they'd see it in a different form, just in different clothes, so to speak. I mean, it's just like one of those stories. It just repeats. All right, there's a right way, there's a better way, and then there's the wrong way. And we've been doing the wrong way. When man becomes so smart that they in a sense they feel they overshadow God. They feel like they don't need the creator anymore. It goes back to that old thing. Well, then, make people, make them out of dirt. Well, who made dirt? You know what I mean?
Who made dirt?
Who made dirt? Can't use that. What are you making it out of? It's just the same thing. And it's flooring. But that goes back to not teaching history. That goes back to not teaching the Bible. That goes back to taking them out of schools. That goes back to, everybody's as smart as their smartphones, but they know nothing about the foundational principles of where they came and what the country was built on, what our history has been. And it's just, and in the churches, they could teach that. They do teach that. Excuse me. But nobody's going to church anymore. Or very few people are going to church. And the churches are getting a bad rap too, because some of the churches are not performing. They're not standing up. In fact, they're doing the exact opposite. And I know, and one of the things that I read about you is, the getting back to the Christian principles and, teaching the actual Christian principles versus I'm one of those. It's funny. I read that with you because last Sunday, my pastor gave a sermon, and that's what his entire sermon was about, is getting back to the exact Christian principles. And it doesn't have to be popular, but this is what it is. And I think it's true. I think it's just, everybody wants to write their own, way. Like you said, truth is my truth. Your truth is your truth. Free to be you and me. And away we go. But that's not working.
No, it doesn't work. This is the age-old question. If there's one question that's older than any others, it's this: who's to say? Who's to say what's right and wrong? And it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, where the devil lied to them and said, has God said? And this eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it is the idea that, wait, I get to say, I don't have to do what God says. I get to know, I get to decide what is good and what is evil. It's up to me. And that basically means you're taking the throne, you're putting yourself on the throne of your life. And this is, of course, what Christ redeemed us from. Is he said, let me be on the throne of your life and let my sacrifice cleanse you of your sin, and you'll be redeemed and come back into the fold, come back into submission to the Father through me, and live according to my word. And God gives us his standards. I believe this, Laura. God gives us his standards, or we can, his commandments for our good, it says. And it's, God knows how he made us. He's the creator and designer. It's like someone who builds a car and writes an owner's manual. If you buy that car and you're so prideful that you think you know better when to change the oil and what size tires to get and how often to tune it up or whatever, better than the guy who designed it, well, you're just foolish, right? We need to operate according to the owner's manual, and when we do, we'll prosper. And it's interesting, your subject is this, family estrangement, doormat mom no more. The commandment to honor father and mother is the one commandment that comes with a promise in the 10 commandments. Honor thy father and mother, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long upon the earth. So honoring father and mother is definitely given, not just for the order and stability of our society, but for the good of the children. It produces the best result in the end. Now, I'm not saying submit to abuse. I'm not saying these kinds of things, or there are cases where there are exceptions to this. But as a general rule, we absolutely need to get back to that. And it's interesting, isn't it? If I might digress for a minute,
Yeah.
Laura, the convergence of these ideas with current politics. The left, the political left, wants to undermine parental authority at every turn, especially in our public school system. But they want kids to transition their gender, so-called, which by the way is a physical impossibility, but nevertheless they want them to do it, and they want to hide it from parents. They want them to lie to their parents, even counseling them how to communicate with trusted adults, not your parents. Parents can't be trusted. Communicate with these people over here, these LGBT activists on this confidential app, and take these hormones, and they want minors to be able to get abortions without parental notification. They create sanctuary jurisdictions for abortion and transgender therapies and grooming kids and all of this unbelievable stuff. Here in Colorado, where we're based, it's a heavily blue state, and they've passed a law saying that children are entitled to get mental health treatment without parental consent at the age of 12. At the age of 12. And they want to lower the age of consent for sex. They want to do all these things to treat children like they're the ones that are in charge, and relegate parents to the, well, you're just the happenstance procreators over here. You go by the wayside and let the government take over. And, it's anti-God, it's anti-Bible, and it will lead to the destruction of our country.
Oh my God, I so agree. I mean, that is crazy. And they do it at a time, because it's known that the most influence a parent has over their child is from 0 to 7. After that, it's the environment and peers. Okay, so they do it at a time when kids are more apt to listen while at their most vulnerable state, away from their parents, right? Then they start them at a time. So they want to be independent. They want to show independence. They want to be part of a peer group. And if the peer group is saying, this is fine, this is great, this makes us grown-ups, they'll just go along with it, because now, and they have no idea what they're doing to themselves. They have no idea. They remove God as the father, and then they remove the mother and father as the father, so to speak, and then they prey on these innocent kids while making them feel like they're grown-ups. That is such evil that's happening.
It really is. And if you look at tyrannical regimes, particularly on the left, what you see is there's a consistent agenda to undermine the family and replace the authority of parents, and make the state the source of controlling the youth, educating the youth, where the youth's loyalty lies, and so forth. Whether it's Nazi Germany or communist Russia or China or North Korea, or even cult religions, will do that. They'll subvert the parents, and the cult leader becomes the parent, the father to the children. In a sense, it's all devilish, and it's destructive. So yeah, absolutely. And in America, what we've done is we've bought into a lie, largely. And I'm not, it's public education. I'm just going to be truthful. The origins of it, really, the modern version of it, its origins are in secular humanism, with the idea of indoctrinating youth in an anti-God philosophy, and they've been highly successful. And so they necessarily will, in part of this ideology, injects themselves between parents and children. So we've got to get involved. If we care, we've got to get involved, and we've got to stand up and take this back, and stand up for truth, for the family, for parents, parental rights, and for the well-being of children.
100%. And that's one of the reasons why myself and so many other creators have finally stood up, because we are seeing the writing on the wall, and we're experiencing the writing on the wall, and unexpectedly. And the pushback has been incredible. I mean, it's been vicious, and you have to look at it this way. I mean, the devil, when he comes at you, if you're over the target, he's going to come at you hard, and you just have to stand. You have to stand in the light and believe that God's going to hold you there, and and move you forward. But it can be really devastating. Some of the creators, I even get people asking, like, how do you deal with the blowback that you get? I just don't even pay attention to it. I just keep my eye on where I'm going, because what I'm trying to do. Because
I mean, if you look at our social media feeds, what you see is just the haters will say outrageous things and crazy things and hateful things, and it's just I take it as further proof that we're over the target, spiritually speaking, and it is what it is. And don't let that bother us. We got to just keep doing what we know is right.
Right. I think that's where we're at, and it takes a few good men and women to keep pushing, keep propping each other up. Yeah. What do you think we need to do? Can we walk all of this back? Can we? Is there hope? That we'll be able to. I mean, I think there is. I was asked that the other day on a podcast, and I think there is, because if there wasn't, then we wouldn't be seeing it. We would just continue blindly walk, in the night. So God must want us to see it.
Yeah, I think there is hope. There's really great hope. So right now, what we're seeing is, I think, the beginning phases of literally a great spiritual awakening in the nation. Young people are returning to church at a rate that is something I don't know that we ever could have predicted. They're now far surpassing pre-COVID church attendance rates. And before COVID, church attendance was already increasing. It took a major dip during the pandemic because churches were shut down. But it has swung back and is now just much higher. And the most promising thing inside of that data is that young men, Gen Z men, are actually attending church at higher rates than Gen Z women. That's something that's almost unheard of, and means that they're going to. I think we have the hope of great leadership ahead. And Bible sales are through the roof. Unreal, like 45% increase year over year. Who ever heard of such a thing? Yeah. Christian music, Christian podcasting, all kinds of things are indicating that a great revival is underway. On college campuses, thousands of students getting baptized, turning out for gospel meetings in just unbelievable numbers, packing auditoriums, people getting baptized in mass baptisms all over the country. So I think there is definitely something great happening, and so I'm very optimistic about it. And I think what we need to do is we need to push the envelope. We don't want to say, oh, okay, it's good now. Let's sit back. It's all going to be okay. No. This thing is so far from over. We have to be absolutely relentless in the pursuit of our goal of the reformation of our nation, getting back to the fundamentals, getting back to the principles on which we're founded, getting back to God and faith and Christ and the Bible, and pursue it to its very end, because there's a long ways to go. George Barna just released some survey data that in the last in 2 years, from I believe it was 2021 to 2023 or somewhere like that, 23 to 25, the percentage of Christians that are pro-life dropped 20%, or churchgoers dropped 20%. The percent that were pro-choice went up 13%. The less than a majority of churchgoers agree with a traditional definition of marriage. It's like, what? How can this happen? And the reason these things, we see this at the same time, is because the leadership in the body of Christ, pastors, and I hate to criticize them because I love them, I used to be one, but pastors are not discipling. They're playing church. They're following this sort of seeker-friendly megachurch model that is all about consumerism, and where they're spoon-feeding people what they want to hear, instead of teaching all things whatsoever Christ commanded, is what we've been told to do by the Lord in Matthew 28. And so we're not talking about these fundamental issues. We're not teaching these basics, and we're letting all sorts of worldly philosophies creep in. And we've got to put a stop to that. But I think God is on the move. He's raising up a new generation and new leaders, and who are not going to continue in these ways. And it's, I think it's a matter of time. As long as we don't give up and keep pressing on, I think we're going to see the victory.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was referring to, over this last Sunday is, my pastor's like, yeah, no, we can't do all this flim, flam, flip flop. There's one Bible, there's one way. And it's
Amen.
not, it's not discounting everyone. It's just, this is just what it is. This was what was handed down. This is the rule book. All right. And you can't just it's not Play-Doh. You can't just mold it so that everybody, it fits everybody. I mean, you don't mold the Bible to you. You mold yourself to the Bible.
That's right.
And that's the way it should be. And I see that, but that goes back to, whatever fits you, whatever fits me, what fits me. That was never supposed to be the church. The church was supposed to lead and to teach, and to teach the word of God, and to lead even the parents so that they could teach the word of God to their children. It's like one to the other. So I'm very glad you said that, because that's fallen away. And I think that's one of the things that, although consumerism and commercialism, it's helping, I guess, to sell books and, and whatever, it's not helping the spiritual growth of people. It's not helping save souls. It's not helping save lives. It's separating lives. It's helping separate lives, because no one's taking a stand.
Yeah, it's true. And the truth of the matter is, for pastors that might be listening, or people that have the ear of a pastor, the truth is that those leaders, Christian leaders who take a stand and who speak the truth, teach the truth according to the word of God, their ministries will prosper and grow. I remember during the pandemic, as I said, we're an arm of Andrew Wommack Ministries. We have Andrew has a very large ministry. It's actually worldwide, with 23 international locations, and a Bible college that has 1,000 students on a main campus and 7,000 worldwide, and so on. So it's a large ministry. But during COVID, we're in Colorado, and we had the draconian shutdown order. The main auditorium holds 3,200 people, and the county health people said you can have no more than 75. and Andrew Wommack, he went along with it for about 2 to 3 weeks, and finally said, you know what, this isn't right. And when Pentecost Sunday arrives, we're reopening, and we're going to hold meetings. And the state came after us. They sued us. We had a legal battle with the state of Colorado and the attorney general here, and ultimately prevailed. But you would have thought that during that time, we would have shrunk, we would have, suffered loss. This ministry grew during that time. And I know of many churches that did take a stand, like Jack Hibbs and, others, Pastor Cheon, and many others who took a stand during COVID. Their congregations exploded in growth, because people are looking for leadership. They're looking for bold leadership, and they'll respond to that. So anyway, that's a little bit of a side trip, but
no, but it's a good side trip, because our church did grow too. And I mean, our ministry has grown incredibly. I mean, I see all new faces all the time filling the pews. And I think because he's a bold pastor. He's, he stands, and this is his church, and he loves it, and he loves his ministry, and he's just trying to do the right thing. He's a genuine pastor, which is why I go there. But I think more people need to be more pastors need to be like that. They need to, take that stand and embrace people into the fold that, really do need them. They really do need that direction. They need that community too. The community is so important. I mean, so many people, especially in this world where we're so connected, but we're not connected. Even though everybody's online, they're meeting for friends online, but there's nothing like having a community, an actual community there. You shake their hand when you walk in the door, and you know you're part of something. People need to be part of something, and that's part of the problem with our kids. They're part of the larger whole, but they're part of nothing in many cases. It used to be not like us, where we would have our friends, we'd see them at school. We now they know everybody, but they know nobody.
Yeah, they think, I don't know what they think, but having 1,000 friends on social media, as if those are real relationships. We're made for contact and real live human interaction. Digital is great, but it's limited and it doesn't produce the same effects. And you mentioned it earlier. People hide behind their computer screens. It creates, we intuitively recognize the lack of connection there. We can pretend otherwise, and it's all the rage now. But it can't replace real human, as you said, community. And that's why actually going to and attending a physical church, a local church, is still critically important.
I agree. You cannot get an actual hug through a computer, right? When you need, you can't.
I think they have an emoji that does this, but
it's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
You can't have someone recognize that you have a tear in your eye because you just had a horrible conversation or something. And, they don't see that on the screen. And yet someone walks through the door and they know you, and they see that you're a little, you don't have that interaction. Those are things that are important. And I do not buy that these young people, when they say, yeah, but we're doing it differently, it's the same. We just, this is just our way. And, it's like what you did in your time. No, throughout history, people have needed physical, connection. They've needed to be in front of each other. And a screen will not completely do it. Right. I mean, we can do this podcast and, because we're using virtual, but would it even be better if we were sitting, in the same room? Absolutely.
Yes. But, it would be. Yeah. I agree. I'm not sure I understand all the hows and whys of that, but digital is a great augment. It's a great, tool and so on, but it cannot replace real human interaction and community live and in person. So we've all got to make that a priority in our life.
So then we bring to the next question. Okay. Have we been so depressed in our systems and our souls in using all of this digital? Has it tainted us so much that we have become so detached, to the human, connection, the human experience, the human, the breath of a human being, that when someone gets assassinated, you can look at it and say, it's just another life. And it really wasn't doing anything good here anyway. So, is that part of it, do you think? Do you think that they become so
dissociated?
Dissociated.
I think it probably is. I can't say that I've seen scientific evidence of it, but I suspect it is. And I know that one of the things that social media does is it's engineered to give people, what they want. In other words, their algorithms and all this, they find out what the topics and the groups that you like and that you respond to, and they measure everything down to the nth detail, and then it feeds you more of that. And so what happens is people will, on social media, they will get naturally driven deeper and deeper into their own camps. And in these some of these extreme political groups, they're feeding on the messages that they want, that they instinctively believe, and it just grows more and more isolated and more extreme. So these folks that are doing things like, shooting Charlie Kirk, or the guy that killed the insurance executive in New York in cold blood, people are rallying behind him, starting GoFundMe campaigns, treating him like he's some kind of hero. Who does that? Well, that's because they're on these online chats and in these rooms and all this sort of stuff where they're feeding this hate and this resentment and this envy and the craziness and the fake news and all these other things. And they think they know, they think they're informed, they think they're in the right, but they're absolutely in the wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely part of it. And you know, we've got to cultivate real live human interaction, and we've got to cultivate discussion, don't we,
Yeah.
across lines with groups and people that we disagree with. That's what Charlie Kirk did so well,
He did.
and able to have that dialogue. It's just sorely missing in our country today.
It absolutely is, and I'm glad you brought up that situation with the pharmaceutical executive that got shot, because whether or not you agree with the pharmaceutical industry and what they're doing, whether you agree you're right or left or whatever, no one should be assassinated. No one.
No.
No one, because one, it's a sin. Two, it's a father, it's a son, it's a brother, it's a cousin, it's a man who has every right to be living. And no one should make a hero of the person who took a life. No
Yep.
one should make a hero of that person.
Yep.
It's a very interesting time that we're living in.
You know, let me comment on something else that I think is, if I could, is really,
Yeah.
really important, and we don't hear it enough. And it's the idea of the rule of law. America is built on this. Without it, we don't have a country. Without it, we do not have freedom. And the left seems to have really jettisoned this idea. Now they're talking about it now because of certain things they claim Trump is violating the rule of law. But you know, when someone thinks that they're justified in going and murdering someone, a healthcare executive or whatever like that, you know, taking the law into his own hands, that's one manifestation of it. But the nation is built on the idea that there is a thing called truth, that we don't own it, that it's our obligation to discover it, that our legal system is designed to reach results based on the truth, and we submit to that rule of law. We don't pervert it for our own purposes, for our own ends, and this kind of thing. Well, it's another casualty. The rule of law is another casualty of leftism, because leftism, again, no God, therefore no truth, no objective truth. Therefore, what I believe is true, and I get to enforce my own truth. It's the same problem. It's another effect of the same problem, ultimately tied back into the rejection of God. But this is a really serious thing. If we can use the legal system for our own purposes, or take the law into our own hands and believe that we're actually justified in doing so, we're not going to have a free republic much longer. I mean, I believe we will, but not if we continue down that road.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. But when now we're looking at, take it a step further, I'm going to bring it up, New York mayoral race,
Yeah.
right? So look who we have that's at the lead, at the front of that. And what we've been talking about, mold it to whatever everybody wants to hear, make it, perfect for everybody's ears. Everything is free. This this is what we're looking at, and it's selling. It's
Yes.
selling.
Yeah. Why is it selling? Because they're not rooted in truth. They're vulnerable to this deception. Yeah. So he's a communist and a socialist and so on, and to him and to people of his mindset, the government, law, politics is it's a tool to be used for your advantage, to use to further your goals and ambitions and ideology. It doesn't matter whether you follow the Constitution. It doesn't matter, because this whole idea of God-given rights, it's non-existent. It's not real. It's not true. We don't believe it anyway. All that matters really is this power struggle, supposedly, between the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots need to win. That's what's right. That's what good is good. So do whatever has to be done in order to get to that objective. That's the old Soviet Union. That's communism.
Yes, it
And
is.
that's how they think. And why should we be surprised when they are corrupt to the core once they're in office? And because there's no such thing as truth, there's no such thing as the rule of law. It's all about us winning. Us winning is the good that we're pursuing. So the means justify the end, because there's no such thing as truth.
Right. And but we also know there's no such thing as free. And we've seen what the
Yes.
free has brought over the years in over our history. We've seen free, and free is never free. Free can be very expensive, and I think if this guy wins, it's going to be extremely expensive. But it's when you're looking at New York City, the fourth largest economy, I mean, in our nation, is that what it is? Or I think that's what it is. Maybe even less. We're going to take a hit.
There will be a
so
hit.
many levels.
New York will pay for it. The country will pay for it. How long that will last, who knows? But people will suffer ultimately because of it, and it could take some time before they're able to wise up and reject that. What it will do to the national economy is interesting. Depends on what they attempt to do to the businesses, especially the banks and investment firms that are located in New York. But there'll be a mass exodus, and they will lose money, lose revenue, and it's because that stuff doesn't work. It never does. But if that's what they want, our system is designed to give the people what they want.
Yeah. Well, Florida better get ready because there's going to be another housing rally out there.
That's true.
Whoever's going to Florida, Ron DeSantis or whoever's in office at that point. Oh my Lord, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much. The Bible is such a recipe book for how to live, and that people don't take advantage of that, because as much as it's a historical accounting, it's as much a guidebook and truly how to live. There's not one thing that happens in our world today or any day that isn't covered in the Bible and how to get through it, even this situation, right? So I would encourage people to pick up a Bible, be one of the 40% that pick up a Bible and start reading, and go to church.
Yeah. That's right. If you
want
to be happy, there's 3 things you can do in life that will make the chance of you living a happy life much, much higher. Pray every day, read the Bible every day, and go to church every Sunday. If you just do those 3 things, you're going to be so much better in the long run. It's just very simple. But when you read the pages of Scripture, it's like, you read the headlines today, it's like you're watching the Bible unfold. It's the same stuff all over again, and the lessons are right there in Scripture to teach us. So we should be seeking out that wisdom.
Yeah, and wouldn't you think that if there's a book out there, all right, that literally has everything in it, that is covering everything from yesterday, and you could just lay it on today, and it would tell you exactly how to get through. So you get through. Don't you think you would want to have that? Just lay it on the situation. All right.
Yeah.
It's telling you how to get through. I mean, it's like a cheat sheet.
Yes. Yeah. It is.
Look at it that way. It's a cheat sheet if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at it that way. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate this conversation. I know we covered a lot of ground, but I figured, you can handle it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to be looking for more of your press releases and more of the things that you're doing. And I hope you do come back sometime. I'd love to have you on again.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor to be with you. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you'd like to learn more about Truth and Liberty and what we're doing, just check out our website at truthandliberty.net. You can subscribe there to our emails and catch our twice-a-week show. We'd love to have you follow us.
Yeah, and I'm going to add all the links to this video so that you can find them easily. So
thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And God bless. And I will see you soon.
Okay. Thank you. It's been great being with you.
Here too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And there we go. Interesting, right? I love that conversation. We did cover a lot of ground, and I don't think he knew what we were going to be talking about, less the estrangement and the press release, but he was a good sport. And I think his opinions are very interesting and very relevant to today. I do suggest you go over to Truth and Liberty. I will leave the links here because I do think it's an important organization that you need to follow. And please, we talk about a lot about my book, which I'm going to bring it up, Doormat Mom No More. You can buy it on Amazon. And it is an important book, but I don't wait, we're going back in. What is a glitch? Maybe God wants you to see it a few times. The Bible. Pick up the Bible. If you've never had a Bible before, pick up the Bible and read it. And it is your recipe book for the rest of your life. It's the cheat sheet that covers every situation. I know maybe God doesn't want me to say it that way, but that's what it is. And there's no situation that's not applicable. So if you want to have that type of book in your life, pick it up. It's easy. It's engaging, and you'll love the stories in it. And do go to church and do pray every day. Your life will be transformed if you do all those three things. All righty. That's it for today. I'm glad you joined us. I hope you join us again next week. We have another interesting guest. And have a wonderful week ahead.